Is Daenerys Targaryen a white savior, and does she fulfill the white savior trope? I fear no one is going to be happy with my answer. Breaking this down can require a bit of nuance because we have to look at two main things. There is what the author is intending in their writing, and then there is what is actually in the text, what is showing up on the page. Not to mention, if we ask this question regarding the books versus the TV show, you're going to get very different answers. One of them, the TV show, has a very clear-cut answer, and then the books require a bit more of nuance. Let's get the easy one out of the way. Does Daenerys fulfill the white savior trope in the TV show? Yes, 100%, absolutely. You cannot argue with that. I'm really sorry. In the world of the TV show, Daenerys is very clearly fulfilling the white savior trope. Everything about her screams white savior in her physical appearance. She is in a foreign land that is populated by brown people, and she alone can, save them from their oppression, from the slavery that they are forced to endure from the other brown people. Now, according to George R. R. Martin, this was an unintentional thing that happened due to the logistics of filming the TV show. Because when you ask him, the author, does he think that Daenerys fulfills the white savior trope, he explicitly says no. He says that the way that he constructed the world in the books, she is not fulfilling that trope. And the only reason that that is happening in the TV show is because of where they were shooting it, in Morocco. And essentially, he explained that when you need extras and you're in a foreign country, you're not going to fly them in. You're going to put out a call for extras, and if you're filming in Morocco, Moroccans are going to show up. And so when we see those images of Daenerys being raised up in the middle of a sea of brown faces and brown arms reaching towards her, and she's in the center being all white and in blue and like looking all contrasted against them, that's just a fact of life when you shoot in Morocco and Moroccans show up. And so, moving on into George's intent, he further explains that in the world of Essos that he has created in the books, it is very multicultural. He says that, all the different areas have different skin tones, they have different looks in their ethnicity. It isn't as singular as the show made it out to be, by virtue of the fact that the show was shooting in one location where there was obviously a dominant ethnic group. And so he points to this and further explains that in his world, the type of slavery that is existing is distinct from the one that we think of in the modern lens. In the modern day, we typically think of chattel slavery and the transatlantic slave trade as what slavery is in our minds. It's this specific system that was enshrined in which, people were kidnapped from Africa and then forced to different areas by ship, in which many people lost their lives. And then once they were at a location, they were kept enslaved in perpetuity for generations. And like all of their children were born into that sort of slavery. Now, according to George, the slavery of Essos, he is primarily basing on like the Roman equivalent at the time, because unfortunately slavery has existed in different forms throughout human history, and the Roman slavery functioned differently because it was not based on race and reinforced with like racial ideologies. Because remember, chattel slavery was what the idea of it was sanctioned by creating all of this like bullshit race science and race ideology about like the superiority of certain races, and that's what made it okay in the eyes of these people to subjugate other people based on skin color. Roman slavery did not have that. If you like lost a war and you were scooped up, it didn't matter what your skin color was. You became a slave and then you were stuck in that state. It also didn't typically move beyond the single generation. Like some of the true horrors that chattel slavery encompassed, including like the forced breeding of people together to like force them to have more children so that they could have more slaves, etc., etc. And so George is arguing that because skin color isn't a factor in the form of slavery that exists in Essos, which is the form that Daenerys is specifically fighting against, and that like she is freeing slaves of all colors, the white savior trope really doesn't apply to her because it isn't a single white girl going to save all the brown folk in the books. So now we understand the author's intent. But intent isn't the only thing. We have to look at intent versus execution. How is this showing up in the context of the work? And in this case, we are clearly talking about the books by now. Now, while I understand George's argument intellectually that like he isn't fulfilling that trope with Daenerys because he's made some distinct choices in changing the environment or the subjects of the trope, I will say that I do think that George has misunderstood a little bit what the white savior trope is. He seems to have a pretty surface level understanding of it. And the problem is while you can look at the white savior trope and look at just like the surface and think that, oh, it's about a white person coming and saving a bunch of brown people who apparently can't save themselves, it is a little more complex than that because it is oversimplifying it down to the skin color and ignoring what the skin color kind of represents. Because the danger in the white savior trope is not like just the visual of white skin, it's whiteness as a concept. And what that trope does is it implies that whiteness is inherently good, and darkness or anything other than whiteness is inherently bad or flawed or troubled. And therefore, we're positioning whiteness as the only thing that can bring a correctness, a rightness to the world. Whiteness as a concept then gets associated with things like purity and righteousness, and those good qualities are now what are needed to, fix a complicated situation or fix a wrong, in this case, slavery. But they're being associated with a person who fulfills, who is an agent of that concept. So because Daenerys, at the end of the day, is that sort of like agent of whiteness in the traditional sense, this like good, pure person of light skin, of blonde hair, who looks distinct, even amongst like the other like Westerosi looking people, because the other people of Westeros are still, traditionally white and brown haired and blonde haired and all that, but she has a striking, distinct look from them, like the Targaryens do. The Targaryens are supposed to be white, but they are still like distinct looking. They are whiter than white almost. And then you add the other elements around her being of a distinct bloodline, the special bloodline, the magical bloodline. And we're fulfilling so many elements of the tropes, even if you want to argue about the nitty gritty of the specific groups that she is helping. It's still someone who is this very specific image of whiteness coming in and saving the day. And this is why I say that it's a little complicated and it's a little nuanced, because it does appear that George has taken some steps to try to avoid that trope, to try to avoid what he considers like the traditional presentation of that trope. But is it enough? I don't think it quite is. I don't think it's as like clear cut as it is in the TV show. I do think it's created a bit of distance, but you still have a person who fulfills so many elements of it, fulfilling many elements of it. Also, before any Dany stands like get up in their feelings, that does not mean that this character is without worth, that this character is bad even. It just means that we have like kind of fallen back into an antiquated and slightly problematic storytelling mode. And unfortunately, many of our favorite stories do this. Does that mean that they don't have worth, that they don't have value, that they aren't fun or entertaining? No, I still love Daenerys Targaryen as a character. I love what she is trying to accomplish. I love her interiority. I love dragons are fucking cool, and just like her as a character who has like withstood so much and tried to be better. It's inspiring. It's good, but that doesn't mean that like in the construction of her, the character, the narrative, that we fully escaped some things that hopefully in the future we can grow out of, just as a world. Anyway, I hope the comments are nuanced and chill and everyone just, shares in a positive way. We'll see. But yeah, please let me know anything you want me to talk about next, and I hope you all have a great night. Okay, bye.